It's season 2. Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah, season 2. We're so excited.
Fantastic.
I'm Aku, and of course, I'm with my well-bearded partner, Yao.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Aku. This season, we have an amazing set of guests for you guys. We look at all things cannabis from the legal side, the economic side. Let's have a lot of fun this season. Welcome back, season 2.
On today's episode, we'll be looking at the economics of cannabis, its policies and practices in an African context.
And today we are here with Professor Imhotep Alagidede, who is a professor in finance from the Wits University, and he also is the editor of the Journal for Indigenous and Shamanic Studies. He had a wonderful interview with Zani Masaka last year, which is where we actually heard of him. And stemming from that interview, we're now sitting with him to get more information on exactly what the cannabis plant is and how it engages the African economy.
Absolutely. Welcome.
Thank you, Yao and Aku. It's really a great pleasure for me to meet with you. And I must say I'm very grateful to Azania for that great interview and all the great team at 702 who put it together, because it's get the conversation going from my side, especially getting out of the ivory tower of the university classroom into the mainstream. And I'm very happy to meet you, and it's a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you.
Thank
Likewise.
you. Very nice to meet you too. So you seem to have a very unique name for the cannabis plant. You call it the magic crop. How did you come about this, and what brought you to cannabis? What brought you to the plant?
Thank you very much, Yao. But it's a very interesting story. So as I sit right now, I don't remember the exact point when I came into contact with it, but I have known about it for a long time. I remember seeing my siblings use it. I mean, those days when we were in school, and the family, it was just a common thing around the family in the village. And growing up, I also went through the same process of mental programming, of understanding that this is evil and you must not get close to it. So at university, I could see some students use it, but I never wanted to get close to it. There was one time I remember when I went to the rooftop of one of the tall buildings, and there I saw, it was a party, and I tasted it then, but I didn't really like the flavor of it, so I never had any type of but just to cut a long story short, 3 years ago I have been battling with this very chronic pain. It's a pain in my clavicle joint here. I mean, I've tried all kinds of pharmaceutical drugs in the pain industry, and nothing seemed to work. I've done all kinds of sophisticated scans, but nothing was there. So and I'm sharing this because the pain actually helped me to understand so many things about endurance, about hardship, about difficulty. So it also got me to explore about alternative healing mechanisms. So it got me into all this mind-body connection and how our minds influences our bodies, and then the role of certain substances that also helps us in many ways to readjust when our bodies are out of equilibrium. So that is how I came across cannabis, and I just stumbled upon some literature somewhere on the internet. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it seemed to me many people have had some experience of using it to treat all kinds of conditions. And I said, wait a minute, what are we talking about here? So I went now deeply into it, because essentially my training is to research and to teach what I research about. So the same tools that I use to, instruct people as a professor, I began to use it to explore the world of that plant alone. And I was blown away by both the scientific literature that exists, but people do not know about, and the yet to be created literature that can revolutionize an industry that is also not talked about. And so that is how I came to cannabis. So personally, it was using it to treat a chronic pain and it helped me to understand the nature of how that pain evolved in my body, what kinds of chemicals and information set was piled up in that type of pain. It was an accumulation of all kinds of stuff over the years, and it served me up to a certain stage, but up to that point I didn't need it, and I had to get rid of that pain, and that was how cannabis assisted me to get rid of the pain. So as a teacher and also a student, so I became a student of the plant, and these days all I do is I try to write, if I can, to help people understand what I have found out from personal experience, and also experiences of people who have also come into contact with it in one way or the other. So in short, this is what I do. So at the university, I'm a professor of finance here, so I'm also helping to set up a cannabis research facility, which together with my colleagues at the School of Biology on main campus, and also pharmacy and other departments, law, within the university, to create a research network so that we can educate students, we can educate even staff, researchers, industrialists, and people who are interested in knowing the different connections that this plant can bring. I talk about it in terms of the forward and backward linkages in the economic system to help us to sustain growth, if you like, to improve livelihoods
on the continent. I find that quite interesting, that essentially pain is what brought you to the plant, because one of the episodes that we did was actually specifically on cannabis and pain management, and the fact that it is such a strong tool for pain management, but as you said, there's very little knowledge out there on how to actually use the plant effectively for pain management, which is actually where a lot of the people that I speak to actually enter into the cannabis space, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain. They use it to help them manage that pain. So I find that quite interesting, that it's also the sort of route that brought you into the arena of cannabis.
Yeah, it's actually very natural, because if you look at the indigenous knowledge systems, we cannot exist on our own without the plant kingdom. So actually our second counterpart, as one of my teachers always said, the second exponent of the human family is in the plant kingdom. We are made up of the plants too. So this plant is a balancer. Anytime you are out of sync with yourself, it just gets you back to normal. So it's almost a no-brainer to talk about it in any other ways. And so it's rather a shocker that people have the other side as being the norm.
Correct.
And this is rather what is not known. So, but it's interesting that we have to go through this cycle. It is also to help us to rediscover the side that we have forgotten. Yeah. So in the Akan parlance we say Sankofa, which is just, you just go back to the original knowledge. There was a root knowledge about this plant and how human beings related with the plant. In that famous story in the garden.
Oh, okay, that's going way back. I didn't think about that one.
But tell me, Prof, why do you think there's still such a big stigma towards the cannabis industry, and what is holding us back?
So one of my colleagues in the School of Law actually said that capitalism started these persecution wars. It was a profit motive. The same capitalism, when they see the profit on the other side, they start the legalization wars. So it's the same, scenario. The plant itself is neutral in all of this battle between those who want to control and those who just want to use it normally.
So that actually segues very well into the next question. What do you think the role, especially economically speaking, the role of big pharma and the tobacco industry on the cannabis industry in terms of its economic growth, and how you see them impacting how fast it will grow or how it's controlled?
The whole debate comes down to collaborative effort between all of these different players. And also even the plants. The plants have no competition the way that we think about it. Tobacco in its natural form is a very magical plant, just as cannabis. Used wisely and intelligently, it has been the tradition of our people, even in marriage ceremonies, lobola and stuff like that, we use it. But not the type of tobacco that they are providing to people, through cigarettes and nicotine and stuff like that. So in the plant world, there's no fight. It is absolute peace. They rather do not understand why human beings have taken it upon themselves to draw these kind of lines. You cannot do real-time pharmaceuticals without the plants. It is almost impossible. It is scientific research that close to 60% of some pharmaceutical formulations require plant extracts. So you cannot just produce synthetic stuff alone. So again, it's a win-win situation. When I talk about the economics of it, even the pharmaceutical industry, when they lay down the tools that they're using to fight so strongly, a battle that you know obviously it's not going to go too far, you can join the other side, which is turn that same infrastructure that has been used to produce and to prosecute and to prohibit into another form. And we can create all of these same drugs, but with different combinations of ingredients. It is just that simple.
That almost sounds like you're saying turn big pharma into big traditional healer, essentially.
No, but they have to do that now because there's no other way to do it. There's no other card to play.
In your wildest dreams, what do you think a healthy and sustainable cannabis industry would look like? And what would be the benefits?
So thank you for that. The plant is going back to where it started off as being a free, unfettered plant where people just use it as a normal vegetable for food at home. You use it for medical purposes. It was the commonest healing substance that one can find. This hasn't changed. You go back to our local villages, that's what people still do. So it is all those of us who live in cities that are actually thinking this way, because it's with all the prohibition, people were still growing it normally. I remember, many years when they were flying helicopters to India to burn down. Those cannabis plants were just growing natural. How are you going to eliminate them? It is so prolific. It is so adaptable. It grows everywhere, even in the winter seasons. The coldest of climates, the hottest of climates, in between. So it is something that we have to learn how to live with rather than fight. So I see cannabis evolving back to where it has always been. It came here as a teacher primarily to teach people about multidimensional living. That's why when you come into contact with it, you cannot think in linear terms anymore, because it's all about multidimensional ways of expression, and that includes sustainability. Because with multidimensional thinking, you have solution to any problem that crops up. And I'm talking about efficient, workable, cost-based type of solutions that keep you at peace with yourself first, with your neighbor second, and with the entire planet. You see, we are told to read 3 books. The books of our own self, the books of our neighbor, and the books of the universe. These are just the 3 books that everyone needs to read. And some of the teachers who are teaching this path, it's just a cannabis plant. It's just not in physical body like human beings are, because we have the illusion that we are the only ones who are intelligent enough. But honestly, when you come into contact with the indigenous plants, and you come back to what we say that we have advanced in terms of physical culture, you just laugh.
That's quite interesting. I never thought about it in the form of 3 books, or I guess even in 3 parts of what we need to be functional human beings, which is self, other, and the general universe, which is our entire environment, our existence.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm gonna change the question set just a little bit and move a bit more technical to the raw economics. Let's take Africa as a whole. Let's say over the next 3 years, in terms of getting the economics right, how would you structure it such that the plant can be used to actually benefit the continent? And the reason I ask that very specifically is right now on the continent, Rwanda, Uganda, South Africa, and to some extent Ghana as well, have legislated, Lesotho, have legislated cannabis, but for medical and export, which once again puts us in the position of being the extracted continent, the continent that provides the raw resources to send outside of our continent to then purchase finished goods back. So how do you see Africa not falling into that trap again and actually moving past that to a point where they're buying finished cannabis goods from us? Because as I'm sure we've all heard, there's billions and billions that's already been turned over in the US on the cannabis market in just about 12 to 13 states. So how do you see us getting it right?
And that's a very thoughtful question, but that's also one of the things that we have been working on assiduously over the past, say, 12 months. So there's a paper coming out in the Journal of Indigenous and Shamanic Studies. It's actually a co-authored paper by myself and my colleague, Emmanuel Kwashi. And we have been looking at this same specific question. So there is a two-tier system that we see, and we have already outlined that in the paper. People can download that easily on the journal's website later on. But the essential argument, and we're just using Ghana as an example because Ghana early in this year, March 2020, actually legalized. They are yet to pass the legislative instrument that will specify what sort of things that you can do with that. When we raise the question, because when you look at the laws and all the other things that are leading to the legalization, they were not indigenously and organically evolved from the country. So we are questioning that type of approach because it gives you fundamentals of setting up a cannabis industry that is oriented outward, which is not fine if you know how to also internalize that. But you have not learned how to internalize it. And you create that industry, what you are simply saying that let's keep the monopoly game going. Kick out all the local guys, because we've seen the laws in Lesotho, in Swaziland, in Eswatini now, in Zimbabwe, all next door, and even right here in South Africa, as we are saying. It costs excessively to be able to put up a greenhouse. We're experimenting at Wits Cannabis Research Campus, which I'm doing with some of my colleagues on campus here. And it's cost money. Not a small peasant farmer can go into an industry that was already free-flowing. It doesn't need any kind of regulation in the way in which we are trying to do it. We can regulate in certain ways, but certainly not that. So by not going hook, line, and sinker with the global rules and standards that exist, and I'm not saying that they are wrong, I'm just saying that fine-tune them specifically to your environment, make it sensible for the local cannabis growers or those interested in going there to be able to access that and not be kicked out just by view of maybe just expenditure on the setup equipment. So we have proposed that as one paradigm. People can do it. It's fine. There are industries that are actually specifically export oriented. They would like to target the North American consumer. He demands certain things. Actually, when you look at our genetics, we shouldn't also take this lightly. It's necessary. What the genetics there can accept is not the same as the genetics within the black race. These are normal, scientific, verifiable facts that we can actually see. So those standards may be required for a certain market segment. Let's do it. Produce to meet those standards and requirements. So let's have one industry of cannabis producers, growers, processors, and etc. who follow these standards. But there is another industry that never went down, by the way. It's just that people don't talk about it. Those guys will grow. He has like 150-acre corn or maize farm, but he has over inside that there's 100 and a couple of acres of tens of land of cannabis. They are growing it. What are you going to do about that? There are plenty of them. You cannot police this thing. It's just waste of public money. So instead of chasing them and using public resources to go and burn down farms and destroy, indigenous crops, properties and knowledge and all of that, we stop that type of destruction. It is a self-destructive, repetitive mechanism that we need to outgrow. And once we outgrow that, we see that side of the market is the largest. You cannot control it. So make peace with it. Let the people use it the way they have known how to use it. If you think that you have studied something in school that would be beneficial, then help them to use that to process better. If you think that you have a better economic system that you have learned in school, then help them. Let them use that to cultivate at a local, small scale level to create local jobs. This is how I see the plant doing exactly, because we are now in that space. The war has gone on for far too long. Nobody is going to win.
If you could rule the world, the entire globe, what one bit of legislation would you try to enforce in the world of cannabis?
So that's a very huge question. So we assume, when I enter the office here, I always assume that I'm the ruler of the world, actually. Right. So it's a nice position to put yourself. Why not? This is the world we live in. It's all in my office. And truly, if you want to decode that, it's true. The world is all that we have in here. So I see this to be a place where you cannot use our human 3D rules to guide and to control. So the issue of rules drop away completely. This is a multi-dimensional plant. Some say it's 5th dimensional, others say 7th dimensional. So you're going to sit in parliament and argue 3D arguments and make a law to evaluate 5, 7D. You don't know what is there.
Prof, where can we find, or can you recommend any resources that people could learn more about the potential of the industry as well as the plant's capabilities?
Thank you for that. So, and it's good you asked because we are building the literature. So from some of the works that we have collected already, you can see literature. There's actually a book by some 2 authors that I cite in the editorial, which I will show all of you. He's a CBD, how to use it to get a cure, but not the high. So taking basically the high out of
cannabis.
And they have collected a lot of scientific research. I was literally blown away when you see the top scientific journals. I mean, I'm talking about Lancet, Nature, all the pharmacology, like the Journal of Infectious Diseases. And there has been a lot of collection of peer-reviewed scientific research. We have collected all of this. You find it in the volume that we are producing this month in November 2020 for the Journal of Indigenous and Shamanic Studies. The articles are actually going to be uploaded online sometime this week. So I will share with you the link and you can go to the Subnet website, you check which of these you are interested in, I'll give you access, and then you can read and educate yourself and get to know the literature. We've also shown some organizations that are actively involved in the research in cannabis. So fields of green for all is they led a legal battle. So I've been in touch with some of the colleagues there, and it's a very nice network. We want to promote this type of work because it's an education platform. Even the basic idea of what the police can and cannot do when they meet you possessing a certain piece of plant that you are just possessing because you are a sacred being that you have the right to use, people do not know that. So the police take the law into their own hands and do whatever they like. And all the talk about stigmatization and the rest, it has to come by us being just truthful to what it is. If the policeman is using the same plant and then he's being asked to go and arrest people who are using it, what are you communicating to yourself as a human being?
Self-hate, if anything.
Yeah, so we have created a system for this to happen, because when you just walk down the streets and go to the township, you've seen everybody is using it, but we are denying that this plant is actually helping people to adjust back to life. We are rather telling people that look at how devilish it is. And for teachers like myself, we are not saying that everything about a plant is positive. We are saying that this is a tool. Just as a knife, if you give a scalpel to a 3-year-old to go to the theater and operate,
Good luck.
good luck to you. But give the same tool to a well-trained surgeon by the table. What do you realize? Is there anything wrong with the tool? No, it's the handler. So we want to blame the tool.
Educate the handler to use the tool.
Yes, this is what it is about.
So where can people find you, Prof?
So I'm based here at the University of the Witwatersrand. To be sure, is the Wits Business School is my location. I'm in Parktown campus. I'm literally all over the internet. So if you Google my name, you can get my contact email on the internet.
That's how I found it.
Okay. Social media?
I'm not big on Facebook. I have an account, but I rarely visit. But other than that, it's just normal email. I run the consultancy called RF Consult. You find that also on the internet, and we have a lot of scientific events and activities.
Thank you so much for coming. We really had an insightful, in-depth discussion around cannabis and the economics around cannabis. We are eternally grateful for this.
Yes, thank you so much. We learned a lot and we look forward to speaking with you again.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for taking the time to talk with me. Bless you in your work, and may the Almighty help this wonderful team to take this message to every nook and cranny that it has to go.
Oh, going to all the nooks, all the crannies. A big thank you for joining us today. We have an amazing season ahead, jam-packed with all kinds of smoke and fire and mirrors and...
Okay. What Yao is trying to say is that we've taken things up a notch. We're talking about agriculture, economics, sex, manufacturing, everything you can think of in the cannabis context.
Remember to subscribe to our channels for more updates on the Age Cannabis podcasts.
Links and information are all below in the description box.
Hi, I'm Andrew Lurry. Catch me on the next episode of the new Age Cannabis podcast.